The phone buzzed against my nightstand like an angry wasp at 3:17 a.m. I knew it was Vanessa before I even opened my eyes. My wife had a talent for turning other people's sleep into her personal emergency hotline. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Derek, thank God you picked up. Her voice was shrill, cutting through the static of a bad connection. Behind her, I could hear thumping music and the kind of laughter that only comes from people who've had too much to drink and too little sense. My card got declined. I need you to send $2,000 right now, or we can't leave. I sat up in bed, running my hand through my hair. The digital clock cast its red glow across our bedroom that Vanessa hadn't slept in for 3 nights running. Where exactly are you, Vanessa? The Platinum Club downtown. Look, I don't have time to explain everything right now. Just send the money to my account, okay? Use the emergency transfer. Emergency transfer, right. Because spending $2,000 at a nightclub at 3 in the morning definitely qualified as an emergency. I could hear a man's voice in the background, smooth and confident, telling someone to give her a minute to sort this out. Who's with you? I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew the answer. Just some friends from work. Derek, please, this is embarrassing enough already. The bouncer is looking at me like I'm some kind of criminal. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us, listening to the chaos on her end of the line. Vanessa Cole, she'd kept her maiden name, said it sounded more professional, had been pulling stunts like this for months. The mysterious work events that ran until dawn, the new clothes that appeared in her closet with tags from stores I'd never heard of, the way she'd started looking at me like I was something she'd stepped in. Derek, are you still there? I'm here, I said, my voice flat. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your father and ask him for the money. Or better yet, ask whoever's been buying you those expensive dinners I keep seeing on the credit card statements. The line went quiet, except for the club noise. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice had dropped to that dangerous whisper she used when she was about to lose her temper completely. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It means I'm tired, Vanessa. I'm tired of being your personal ATM. I'm tired of funding your little adventures. And I'm really tired of pretending I don't know what's going on. You're being paranoid and ridiculous. This is just a work thing that ran late and at the Platinum Club, right, because nothing says professional networking like a place that charges $50 for a shot of vodka. I could hear her breathing getting faster, the way it did when she was working herself up to one of her performances. Vanessa had always been dramatic, but lately she'd elevated it to an art form. Fine, she snapped. Be an asshole. But don't expect me to forget this, Derek. When I needed you most, you hung up on me. You're right, I said, and I meant it. I am going to hang up on you. And I did. I turned off the phone completely, not just the ringer. Whatever crisis Vanessa had manufactured for herself at the Platinum Club, she could figure it out without me. I'd been her safety net for too long, catching her every time she jumped without looking. Tonight, she could learn what it felt like to fall. I should have felt guilty. A good husband would have sent the money first and asked questions later. A good husband would have gotten dressed and driven downtown to rescue his wife from whatever mess she'd gotten herself into. But as I settled back into bed, pulling Vanessa's cold pillow over my head to block out the streetlight, I realized I didn't feel guilty at all. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The next morning came too soon, gray and drizzling in that way that made our coastal main city look like a black and white photograph. I made coffee in the quiet kitchen, enjoying the absence of Vanessa's morning routine, the hairdryer running for 45 minutes, the phone calls to her friends rehashing every detail of the previous night, the constant stream of complaints about everything from the weather to the way I loaded the dishwasher. I was halfway through my first cup when my phone rang. Not Vanessa's number, I would have recognized that and let it go to voicemail. This was local, official looking. Mr. Derek Lawson? Speaking. This is Officer Martinez with the Portland Police Department. I'm calling about your wife, Vanessa Cole. She's currently in custody, and she gave us your number as her emergency contact. I set down my coffee cup carefully, processing this information. In custody for what? Attempted fraud and disorderly conduct. She tried to use what appears to be a fake credit card at a downtown establishment last night, and when security confronted her, things got complicated. Fake credit card. I almost smiled. Vanessa had probably tried to use one of those prepaid cards she was always buying, thinking she could hide her spending from me. The irony was perfect. In trying to conceal her financial games, she'd actually gotten herself arrested. Is she asking for bail money? I asked. She's asking for you to come down and straighten this out. She says there's been a misunderstanding. Of course she did. In Vanessa's world, there were never consequences, only misunderstandings. Other people were always wrong, always overreacting, always failing to appreciate her special circumstances. Officer Martinez, I said, I think my wife needs to learn that actions have consequences. If she's committed a crime, then she should face the appropriate legal process. There was a pause on the other end. Sir, are you saying you don't want to help with her release? I'm saying that if she broke the law, she should deal with it like any other adult. She's a grown woman who made her own choices. After I hung up, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, listening to the rain against the windows. For the first time in years, I was making decisions based on what I wanted instead of what Vanessa demanded. It felt strange and liberating, like taking off shoes that had been too tight for so long I'd forgotten what comfortable felt like. By noon, Vanessa was home. She burst through the front door like a hurricane, her designer dress wrinkled, her makeup smeared, her hair a disaster. She'd obviously had to call someone else for help, probably her father, or maybe that smooth-voiced man from the club. The thought that she had other options, other people willing to rescue her at a moment's notice, only confirmed what I'd been suspecting for months. You bastard, she said, slamming her purse down on the kitchen counter. You absolute bastard. Do you have any idea what I went through last night? They put me in a cell with a woman who smelled like she hadn't showered in a week. They took my jewelry. They made me sit on a metal bench for 6 hours. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been working on code for my startup's latest project. Sounds unpleasant. Maybe next time you'll think twice before trying to defraud a business. I didn't defraud anyone. It was a mistake with the card. The magnetic strip was damaged or something. But instead of being supportive, instead of helping your wife when she needed you, you decided to teach me some kind of lesson. She was building up steam now, pacing around the kitchen like a caged animal. This was vintage Vanessa. Turn herself into the victim, make everyone else the villain, never accept responsibility for anything. Who bailed you out? I asked. The question stopped her mid-pace. What? Someone had to post bail. Someone had to sign papers and guarantee you'd show up for your court date. Who was it? My father, if you must know. He was horrified that his son-in-law would abandon his daughter in jail. He's never liked you, Derek, but now he thinks you're completely heartless. I nodded, unsurprised. Vanessa's father had been bankrolling her lifestyle since before I met her. He was the kind of man who believed money could solve any problem, and that his little princess should never have to face consequences for anything. Well, I'm glad you had someone to call, I said. Because I meant what I told you last night. I'm done being your emergency contact for situations you create yourself. Vanessa stared at me like I'd grown a second head. What is wrong with you? This isn't how marriage works, Derek. We're supposed to support each other. You're right, I said, closing my laptop. We are supposed to support each other, so maybe you can explain why you've been spending money we don't have at clubs I've never been to with people I've never met. I told you, it was work-related. What kind of work requires you to spend $2,000 at the Platinum Club at 3 in the morning? Event planning is a social business. I have to maintain relationships, network with potential clients. You wouldn't understand because you sit in front of a computer all day. But some of us have to actually interact with people to make money. It was a good performance, delivered with just the right amount of indignation and condescension. 6 months ago, it might have worked. 6 months ago, I might have apologized for being suspicious and transferred money to cover her networking expenses. But 6 months ago, I hadn't started paying attention to the details. "Vanessa," I said, "I've frozen our joint accounts." The words hit her like a physical blow. She actually took a step backward, her face going pale under her smeared makeup. "You can't do that." "I already did. As of this morning, you'll need my authorization for any transaction over $50. That's financial abuse. You can't control my access to our money." "Our money," I repeated. "Interesting phrase, because according to our bank statements, you've been treating it like your money for quite a while now. The shopping sprees, the mysterious cash withdrawals, the restaurant bills from places you claim you've never been to." Vanessa's mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. For once in her life, she seemed to be at a loss for words. "I've also canceled your credit cards," I continued, "the ones that are in my name anyway. If you want to maintain your lifestyle, you'll need to find your own funding." "Derek, you're scaring me. This isn't like you at all." She was right about that. The old Derek would have felt terrible seeing her so shocked and upset. The old Derek would have immediately backed down, apologized, restored her access to everything, and pretended this conversation had never happened. But the old Derek had been a fool. "Maybe you should call your father," I suggested. "Or better yet, call your friend from the club, the one with the smooth voice who was so concerned about your situation last night." The color that had returned to Vanessa's face drained away again. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." I picked up my laptop and headed for the stairs. At the bottom step, I turned back to look at my wife. Really look at her. When had she become a stranger? When had the woman I'd married turned into this person who lied as easily as breathing? "Vanessa," I said, "I want you to know that I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I'm just done. Whatever game you've been playing, whatever you thought you were getting away with, it's over." She was still standing in the kitchen when I reached the top of the stairs, staring at the spot where I'd been standing, like she couldn't quite believe I'd actually said those things. Like she couldn't quite believe that her safety net had finally developed some holes. I went into my home office and closed the door. Through the window, I could see our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, walking her ancient golden retriever, the same route they took every day at exactly 2 o'clock. Some routines were comforting in their predictability. Others, I was learning, were just traps you built for yourself. My best friend Miles Chen had been a cop for 10 years before he got tired of the politics and started his own private investigation business. He specialized in insurance fraud and cheating spouses, which made him exactly the right person to call when you suspected your wife was living a double life. "You want me to follow Vanessa?" he asked, leaning back in his chair at the Lighthouse, our usual bar downtown. It was the kind of place that served decent beer and minded its own business, which made it perfect for conversations you didn't want overheard. "I want you to find out where our money is going," I said. "She's spending like she has a secret income source, and I don't think it's coming from her event planning business." Miles nodded, sipping his beer. He was a compact guy with sharp eyes and the kind of stillness that came from years of watching people lie to him professionally. "How long has this been going on?" "I started noticing things about 6 months ago. New clothes, expensive restaurants showing up on the credit card statements, late nights that she claims are work events, but it really accelerated in the last 2 months." "Any idea who the other man might be?" I almost choked on my beer. "What makes you think there's another man?" Miles gave me the look he usually reserved for people who tried to convince him that their house fire was definitely an accident. "Derek, in my experience, when a married woman starts spending money she doesn't have and staying out all night, there's usually a guy involved. Someone with deeper pockets than her husband." It made sense, but hearing it said out loud still hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd been thinking about Vanessa's behavior in terms of financial irresponsibility and dishonesty. I hadn't really let myself consider that she might be cheating. The night she got arrested, I said slowly, there was a man's voice in the background when she called me. He sounded confident, like he was used to handling situations like that. What did he say? Something about giving her a minute to sort it out, like he knew she'd be able to fix the problem with a phone call. Miles pulled out his phone and started typing notes. The Platinum Club, right? I know that place. It's not cheap, and it's not the kind of spot you go to for business networking unless your business involves a lot of cash and very few questions. What do you mean? It's owned by a guy named Aiden Price. Real estate, some import-export stuff, probably some things that aren't strictly legal but are hard to prove. He likes to think of himself as a player, if you know what I mean. The name didn't ring a bell, but something about Miles's description made my stomach tighten. You think Vanessa might be involved with this Price guy? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I'll tell you what, give me a week, and I'll find out exactly what your wife has been up to. Fair warning, though, you might not like what I discover. I thought about that as I walked home through the drizzling streets. Did I really want to know the truth about Vanessa? Was I prepared to find out that my marriage had been a lie for months, maybe longer? By the time I reached our house, I decided that ignorance wasn't an option anymore. Whatever the truth was, it had to be better than the constant suspicion and doubt that had been eating at me. Vanessa's car wasn't in the driveway, which wasn't surprising. Since our confrontation 3 days ago, she'd been coming and going at odd hours, never saying where she was going or when she'd be back. She'd also been making a lot of phone calls in hushed tones, always ending the conversation when I entered the room. I was heating up leftover pizza when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Coffee tomorrow? Lila. Lila Morrison was Vanessa's best friend and business partner, a woman who treated gossiping like an Olympic sport. She was also someone who knew all of Vanessa's secrets, which made her text message very interesting. I typed back, "Sure, grind coffee on Exchange Street, 10 a.m. The next morning, Lila was already waiting when I arrived, hunched over her phone at a corner table. She looked nervous, which was unusual for someone who normally had the confidence of a person who knew everyone else's business. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as I sat down. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "What's this about, Lila?" She glanced around the coffee shop like she was checking for surveillance, then leaned forward. "It's about Vanessa, and about things that are going to come out whether I tell you or not." I felt that familiar tightening in my chest. "What kind of things?" "She's been..." "Look, Derek, I like you. I always have. You're a good guy, and you deserve better than what's been happening. Just say it." Lila took a deep breath. She's been seeing someone. For about 4 months now. A guy named Aiden Price who owns some clubs downtown. He's been paying for everything. The clothes, the dinners, the trips she told you were work conferences. Even though I'd been expecting something like this, hearing it confirmed felt like getting hit by a truck. "How do you know all this?" "Because she tells me everything. She always has. She thinks it's exciting, having this rich older man who spoils her and makes her feel special. She says you've gotten boring, that you don't appreciate her anymore." The casual cruelty of it was almost worse than the cheating itself. Vanessa hadn't just betrayed me. She'd been entertaining her friends with stories about how inadequate I was. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Lila looked uncomfortable. "Because she's planning to leave you. She thinks Aiden is going to divorce his wife and marry her. She's been talking about it for weeks, about how she's going to take half of everything you own and start fresh with someone who really understands her." "Aiden Price is married?" "Oh yeah. Wife, 2 kids, big house in Cape Elizabeth. Vanessa knows about them, but she's convinced herself that he's going to leave them for her. She's living in a fantasy world. I stared out the coffee shop window, watching people hurry past in the morning drizzle. Everything made sense now, the spending, the late nights, the way Vanessa had been treating me like an inconvenience she was planning to discard. "There's something else," Lila said. "She's been taking money from the business account, our event planning business. She thinks I don't know, but I've been tracking every transaction. She's stolen almost $15,000 in the last 2 months. Are you going to report her?" "I don't know. That's why I wanted to talk to you first. If this all comes out, if Aiden doesn't leave his wife like Vanessa expects, she's going to come crawling back to you. She'll have some story about how it was all a mistake, how she never meant for things to go so far." I finished my coffee, thinking about everything Lila had told me. Vanessa wasn't just cheating, she was planning to destroy me financially and emotionally, then move on to her new life without looking back. "Lila," I said, "I need you to do me a favor." "What?" "Don't tell Vanessa about this conversation. Let her keep thinking that I don't know anything. Can you do that?" She nodded, though she looked puzzled. "Sure. But why?" "Because I want to see how far she's willing to go. I want to know exactly what kind of person I married." That afternoon, I called Miles and told him about my conversation with Lila. He listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. "So we've got adultery, theft from her business partner, and plans to take you to the cleaners in a divorce," he said when I finished. "The question is, what do you want to do about it?" "I want evidence. Photos, documents, recordings, everything we can legally obtain. If Vanessa wants to play games, I'm going to make sure I win." "Derek, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Once we go down this road, there's no going back. Your marriage is going to be over." I thought about that for a moment. Was I sure? Was I ready to blow up my life based on what I'd learned? Then I remembered the sound of Vanessa's voice on the phone that night, demanding money like it was her right. I remembered the casual way Lila had described how Vanessa talked about me to her friends. I remembered coming home to an empty house, night after night, while my wife was out spending my money on another man. "My marriage has been over for months," I told Miles. "I just didn't know it yet." Miles worked fast. Within 3 days, he had photos of Vanessa and Aiden Price entering and leaving the Platinum Club, a downtown hotel, and an expensive restaurant I'd never been to. The images were clear and damning. Vanessa laughing at something Aiden was whispering in her ear, Aiden's hand on the small of her back as they walked into the hotel, the two of them kissing in the front seat of his black BMW. Looking at the photos felt surreal, like watching a movie about someone else's life. The woman in the pictures looked like my wife, but she was animated in a way I hadn't seen in years. She looked happy. "There's more," Miles said, spreading additional documents across his desk. "Bank records, credit card statements, receipts. Your wife has expensive tastes, and Aiden Price has been more than happy to indulge them." I picked up a receipt from a jewelry store downtown. $1,800 for a diamond bracelet, paid for with Aiden's American Express card. The date was 2 weeks ago, the same day Vanessa had told me she was working late on a client proposal. "How did you get all this?" "Price isn't as careful as he thinks he is. He uses the same credit card for everything, and he's got accounts at half the high-end places in the city. People talk, especially when you ask the right questions." Miles pulled out another set of photos, these ones taken with a telephoto lens. Vanessa and Aiden in what appeared to be the lobby of an expensive hotel, standing close together while he showed her something on his phone. "This was yesterday afternoon," Miles said, "about the same time she texted you saying she was meeting with a potential client about a wedding." I remembered that text. Vanessa had seemed excited about the opportunity, claiming it could be worth $10,000 in revenue. Another lie in a growing collection. "What do you know about Price's situation at home?" "Married 15 years, 2 kids in private school. Wife doesn't work, probably doesn't pay much attention to his business activities. He's got a reputation for this kind of thing, likes to play the generous benefactor to younger women who are impressed by money. And Vanessa thinks he's going to leave his wife for her? Miles shrugged. Men like Price don't leave their wives for their girlfriends. They just get better at hiding their affairs. Your wife is kidding herself if she thinks this is going to end with a wedding ring. I gathered up the photos and documents, feeling a strange sense of calm settling over me. For months, I'd been questioning my own perceptions, wondering if I was being paranoid or unreasonable. Now I had proof that my instincts had been right all along. "What's the next step?" I asked. "That depends on what you want to accomplish. If you just want a divorce, we've got more than enough evidence to ensure you keep most of your assets. If you want to get creative, well, there are other options." I looked at Miles carefully. "What kind of other options?" "Price has built his reputation on being discreet and sophisticated. He wouldn't appreciate having his affairs become public knowledge, especially if it got back to his wife. And your wife has been stealing from her business partner, which is a crime that could have serious consequences if Lila decided to press charges. You're talking about blackmail. I'm talking about leverage. There's a difference." I thought about it as I drove home, the envelope of evidence sitting on the passenger seat like a loaded weapon. Part of me just wanted to confront Vanessa with the photos and end this charade. But another part of me, a part that had been growing stronger since that night she'd called from the club, wanted something more. I wanted her to understand what it felt like to be betrayed. I wanted her to experience the same shock and humiliation she'd been planning to inflict on me. When I got home, Vanessa was in the kitchen, dressed in a new outfit I'd never seen before, a designer dress that probably cost more than most people made in a week. She was on the phone, laughing at something the person on the other end was saying. "I have to go," she said when she saw me. "My husband just got home." The way she said "husband" made it sound like a burden she was carrying temporarily. "Going out again tonight?" I asked. "Client dinner, you know how it is." "Right, the event planning business. Must be going well, judging by the new dress." Vanessa smoothed down the fabric self-consciously. "This old thing? I've had it forever." Another lie, delivered with the same casual confidence as all the others. I wondered how many lies she'd told me over the years, how many times I'd accepted her explanations without question. "Have fun at your client dinner," I said. She kissed my cheek on her way out, a perfunctory gesture that felt like a performance. "Don't wait up." After she left, I sat in my home office and studied the photos Miles had taken. In every image, Vanessa looked like a different person, confident, radiant, alive. It occurred to me that maybe this was who she really was, and the bored, dissatisfied woman I'd been living with was the performance. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your wife is a very lucky woman. Hope she appreciates what she has. A friend." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Someone was playing games, but I wasn't sure who or why. The timing seemed too coincidental to be random. 20 minutes later, another text from the same number. "Ask her about the bracelet." This time I didn't delete the message. Instead, I forwarded it to Miles with a note. "Someone else knows about Vanessa and Price. Can you trace this number?" Miles called me back within an hour. "It's a burner phone, probably bought with cash, but I've got some ideas about who might be sending these messages." "Who?" "Could be Price's wife. Could be someone who works at one of the places they've been meeting. Could be another woman Price has been seeing who's jealous of the attention he's paying to Vanessa. There are others. Derek, guys like Aiden Price don't usually limit themselves to one affair at a time. Your wife might think she's special, but she's probably just the latest in a long line of married women who thought they could change him." The idea that Vanessa wasn't even Price's only mistress should have made me feel better, but it didn't. It just made the whole situation seem more sordid and pathetic. "I want to confront him," I said. "Bad idea. Right now, you have all the advantages. You know about them, but they don't know you know. The moment you tip your hand, they'll get more careful, maybe even end the affair before you're ready. So, what do you suggest? Patience. Let them think they're getting away with it. In the meantime, we keep gathering evidence and wait for the right opportunity to use it. That night, I lay in bed listening for Vanessa's car in the driveway. She came home at 2:30 a.m., moving quietly through the house like she was trying not to wake me. I heard her in the bathroom, running water, brushing her teeth. When she finally slipped into bed, she smelled like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. "How was your client dinner?" I asked softly. She jumped, clearly thinking I was asleep. "Oh, it was fine. Long, but productive. I think we might land the account." "That's great. What kind of event are they planning?" There was a pause in the darkness. A corporate retreat. Team building stuff. Sounds boring." "Yeah, it really was." She turned away from me, pulling the covers up to her chin. Within minutes, her breathing had settled into the rhythm of sleep, but I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and planning my next move. The anonymous texts continued over the next few days, always brief and cryptic. "She thinks you don't know. He's done this before. Check the hotel receipts." I started to look forward to them, like clues in a puzzle I was trying to solve. Someone out there was watching Vanessa and Price, documenting their affair, and for reasons I couldn't understand, they wanted me to know about it. Miles had a theory about that too. "Whoever's sending these messages wants the affair to be exposed," he said when we met for lunch. "The question is why? Are they trying to help you, or do they have their own agenda? Does it matter? It might. If this person decides to go public with what they know before you're ready, it could complicate things." I thought about that as I walked back to my office. My startup was doing well. We'd just landed a major contract with a healthcare company. But a messy public divorce could still damage my reputation and my business relationships. I needed to control the timing and the narrative. That evening, I made a decision. I was going to give Vanessa one last chance to tell me the truth. If she continued lying, I'd know for certain that our marriage was beyond saving. "Vanessa," I said over dinner, "are you happy?" She looked up from her salad, surprised by the question. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you happy with your life? With us? With the way things are going?" "That's a strange question, Derek. Why are you asking?" "Because I feel like we've been drifting apart lately. You're always working, always busy with clients and events. I'm wondering if maybe we need to make some changes." For a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. Her expression softened, and she looked almost guilty. "I think we're fine," she said finally. "Maybe we're both just busy with work right now. Things will settle down." "Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me? Nothing that's been bothering you?" "Like what?" "I don't know. Anything. I just want you to know that you can talk to me about anything." Vanessa reached across the table and took my hand. Her touch felt cold and unfamiliar. "Derek, you're sweet to worry, but everything is fine. I love you, and I love our life together. I wouldn't change anything." The lie was so smooth and confident that I almost admired her skill. She looked me right in the eyes and told me she wouldn't change anything, even though she was planning to leave me for another man. That night, I called Miles and told him I was ready to move forward. "What did you have in mind?" he asked. "I want them to know that I know, but I want to do it in a way that gives me maximum leverage." "Okay, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to return Vanessa's bracelet." The annual Harbor Foundation Charity Gala was exactly the kind of event Vanessa lived for. 500 of the city's most prominent citizens gathered in the ballroom of the Eastland Park Hotel, all dressed in their finest clothes and competing to see who could appear the most generous while actually giving the least. Vanessa had been planning her outfit for weeks, settling on a black evening gown that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She'd also been planning her speech. As one of the event organizers, she was scheduled to present the foundation's annual report to the assembled crowd. It was the perfect opportunity for what I had in mind. "You look beautiful," I told her as we walked into the hotel lobby. It wasn't a lie. She did look stunning, radiant with the confidence that came from knowing she was about to be the center of attention. "Thank you," she said, squeezing my arm. "I'm nervous about the presentation, but I think it's going to go well." We made our way through the cocktail reception, Vanessa working the room like a politician running for office. She introduced me to people I'd never met, all of whom seemed to know intimate details about our lives that I was pretty sure I'd never shared. "Derek's startup is doing so well," she told a group of women who were clearly more interested in her dress than my business. "He's such a brilliant programmer. I'm so proud of him." The performance was flawless, but I'd seen behind the curtain now. I knew that when she talked about me to her real friends, the tone was very different. At 8 o'clock, the crowd moved into the main ballroom for dinner and the evening's program. Vanessa and I were seated at a table near the front, along with other major donors and organizers. I recognized several faces from the society pages of the local newspaper. "Ladies and gentlemen," the master of ceremonies announced after the main course had been cleared, "please welcome Vanessa Cole, who will present the Harbor Foundation's annual impact report." Vanessa stood and made her way to the podium, pausing to accept congratulations and encouragement from people at the tables she passed. She looked completely in her element, like this was what she'd been born to do. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom's sound system. "This past year has been incredible for the Harbor Foundation, and it's all because of the generous support of people like you." I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery, scrolling to the image Miles had taken of Vanessa and Aiden Price kissing in his BMW. With a few quick taps, I uploaded it to a cloud storage account and generated a public link. "Our youth mentorship program has served over 200 at-risk teenagers," Vanessa continued, "providing them with guidance, support, and hope for the future." I opened my text messaging app and typed a message to Vanessa's phone. "Smile for the cameras, sweetheart. Everyone should see how happy you are." Photo link. We've also expanded our job training initiatives, helping dozens of adults develop new skills and find meaningful employment in our community. I hit send. Vanessa's phone was in her purse, which was sitting on the table next to me. I could see the screen light up through the black fabric as the message arrived. She was too focused on her presentation to notice. But perhaps our greatest achievement this year has been our family support program, which has helped strengthen marriages and relationships throughout our community. The irony of that statement was so perfect I almost laughed out loud. Vanessa wrapped up her presentation to enthusiastic applause, then made her way back to our table. She was glowing with the satisfaction of a performance well received. "That was wonderful," I told her as she sat down. "You're a natural public speaker." "Thank you. I think it went better than I expected." She reached for her purse to check her phone, a habit so ingrained she probably wasn't even aware she was doing it. I watched her face as she opened the text message, saw her expression change from satisfaction to confusion to horror in the space of about 3 seconds. "Excuse me," she whispered, standing up so quickly she nearly knocked over her chair. "I need to use the restroom." I gave her a 5-minute head start, then followed. The women's restroom was just off the main lobby, and I could hear Vanessa's voice through the door, high-pitched, panicked, clearly on the phone with someone. "I don't know how he got this," she was saying. "Someone must have been following us. What are we going to do?" I couldn't hear the response, but I could imagine Aiden Price trying to calm her down, probably telling her it was just someone trying to cause trouble. "No, you don't understand," Vanessa continued. "This is Derek. He's not going to just let this go. He's going to want explanations, and I don't know what to tell him." More silence while she listened. "Meet you where?" Aiden, I can't just leave. There are 500 people here who know me. If I disappear now, it's going to cause a scene. I pulled out my phone and sent another text. Having fun at your charity event? Don't let me interrupt your evening. We'll talk when you get home. Through the bathroom door, I heard Vanessa's phone buzz with the incoming message. Her conversation stopped abruptly, replaced by what sounded like sobbing. I walked back to our table and finished my dinner, making polite conversation with the other guests about local politics and business trends. Several people asked where Vanessa had gone, and I told them she wasn't feeling well, probably something she ate. 20 minutes later, she returned to the table, her makeup repaired, but her composure clearly fragile. She sat down without looking at me, her hands shaking slightly as she reached for her water glass. Feeling better? I asked. Much, thank you. Good. I'd hate for anything to ruin such a special evening. The rest of the gala passed in surreal normalcy. We listened to more speeches, participated in the silent auction, and mingled with other guests during the reception that followed the formal program. Vanessa managed to maintain her social facade, but I could see the strain in her smile, the way she kept checking her phone, the careful distance she maintained between us. We didn't speak during the drive home, the silence in the car thick with unspoken accusations and denials. It wasn't until we were in our kitchen, the formal clothes and social masks finally discarded, that the real conversation began. We need to talk, Vanessa said, her voice steadier than I'd expected. I agree. That photo you sent me, where did you get it? Does it matter? Of course it matters. Someone has been stalking me, taking pictures without my permission. That's illegal, Derek. I almost admired her strategy. Go on the offensive, make herself the victim, turn the focus away from her behavior and onto mine. Is it real? I asked. What? The photo. Is it really you kissing another man in his car? Vanessa's face went through several expressions before settling on defiant. Yes, it's real. But it's not what you think. What do I think? You think I'm having an affair. You think I've been lying to you and sneaking around behind your back. Haven't you? It's complicated, Derek. Aiden and we have a connection, an understanding, but it's not what you're imagining. What exactly am I imagining? That I don't love you anymore. That I want to leave you for him. That our marriage means nothing to me. She was good. I had to give her that. Even caught red-handed, she was still trying to manipulate the situation, still looking for a way to maintain control of the narrative. Tell me about the bracelet, I said. The question caught her off guard. What bracelet? The diamond bracelet. $1,800 at Morrison's Jewelry, paid for by Aiden Price 2 weeks ago. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed without sound. Finally, she sank into one of the kitchen chairs, her carefully constructed defenses crumbling. How long have you known? She asked. Long enough? Are you going to divorce me? I don't know. That depends on what you do next. What do you mean? I sat down across from her at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals over the years of our marriage. It felt like a lifetime ago. I mean, you have choices to make, Vanessa. You can end this affair, come clean about everything, and we can try to rebuild our marriage. Or you can continue lying to me, in which case I'll make sure everyone in this city knows exactly what kind of person you really are. You're threatening me. I'm giving you options. Vanessa stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out which choice would benefit her most. It was a look I'd never seen before, cold and purely self-interested. I need time to think, she said finally. You have until tomorrow night. After that, I start making decisions for both of us. She went upstairs without another word, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the wreckage of our marriage spread out between us like broken glass. My phone buzzed with another anonymous text. Well played, but this is just the beginning. This time, instead of deleting the message, I typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "Someone who wants to see justice done. Sweet dreams, Derek." I turned off the phone and sat in the dark kitchen for a long time, listening to the sounds of Vanessa moving around upstairs, drawers opening and closing, the shower running, muffled phone conversations that stopped whenever I came near the stairs. By morning, I knew what her decision was going to be. The question was whether I was prepared for what came next. Vanessa was gone when I woke up the next morning, along with 2 suitcases and most of her jewelry. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter, written in her careful handwriting on expensive stationery. "Derek, I need some space to figure things out. I'm staying with Lila for a few days. Please don't try to contact me until I'm ready to talk. V." I almost laughed. Even in her goodbye note, she was trying to control the situation, making it sound like she was the one making mature decisions about our relationship. My phone had 3 missed calls from Miles and a text message. "We need to talk. Something's happened." I called him back while I made coffee, trying to process the strange sense of relief I felt at having the house to myself. "Derek, where's Vanessa?" Miles asked, without preamble. "Gone. Packed some bags and left sometime during the night." "Why?" "Because Aiden Price's car was vandalized last night. Someone spray-painted homewrecker across the hood and dumped what smells like fish guts all over the interior." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "When did this happen?" "Sometime between midnight and 6 a.m. His car was parked in the garage under his condo building, so whoever did it had to get past security." "Any idea who might have done it?" "Well, the obvious suspect would be you, except that I know you were at home all night. I drove by around 2 a.m. and saw your car in the driveway." "You were checking up on me?" "I was covering your ass. If something happened to Price or his property, you'd be the first person the police would want to talk to." I appreciated Miles's foresight, but I was more interested in who had actually vandalized Price's car. The anonymous text messages, the perfectly timed photo at the charity gala, and now this. Someone was orchestrating events, pushing the situation toward some kind of conclusion. "Miles, I think we need to find out who's been sending me those text messages." "Already working on it. I've got a contact at the phone company who owes me a favor. Should have some information by this afternoon." After Miles hung up, I called my office and told them I was working from home for the day. I had a feeling things were about to get complicated, and I wanted to be available when they did. At 11 a.m., my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see a woman I didn't recognize, mid-40s, well-dressed, with the kind of composed expression that suggested she was used to difficult conversations. "Mr. Lawson, my name is Catherine Price. I think we need to talk." Aiden Price's wife. The anonymous messenger revealed. I opened the door and invited her in, curious about what she had to say. She declined my offer of coffee and got straight to the point. "I know about your wife and my husband," she said, settling into the living room chair that Vanessa usually claimed. "I've known for about 6 weeks. How did you find out?" "The same way you probably did. Credit card statements, late nights, changes in behavior. Aiden thinks he's very clever, but he's actually quite predictable." Catherine Price was nothing like what I'd expected. She was calm, articulate, and completely in control of herself. If she was devastated by her husband's infidelity, she wasn't showing it. "Were you the one sending me the text messages?" I asked. She smiled, the first genuine emotion she'd shown since arriving. "Guilty. I thought you deserved to know what was happening. I also thought you might be more motivated than I am to do something about it." "What do you mean?" "I mean that I've been married to Aiden for 15 years. This isn't his first affair, and it probably won't be his last. I've learned to work around his hobbies." "You're not planning to divorce him?" "Why would I? I have a comfortable life, financial security, and 2 children who adore their father despite his flaws. Divorce would be expensive and disruptive, and it wouldn't change who Aiden is." I stared at her, trying to understand her perspective. So you just accept it? I manage it. There's a difference. Catherine reached into her purse and pulled out a thick manila envelope. These are copies of everything I've collected over the past 6 weeks. Photos, receipts, hotel records, text messages I recovered from Aiden's phone. I thought you might find them useful. I took the envelope, but didn't open it. What do you want in return? I want your wife to understand that she's not special. Aiden has had dozens of affairs over the years, and they all follow the same pattern. He makes the woman feel like she's the love of his life, showers her with expensive gifts, promises to leave his family, and then moves on to someone new when the novelty wears off. You want me to tell Vanessa this? I want you to make sure she understands that she's been played, that everything Aiden told her was a lie, and that he was never going to leave me for her. Catherine stood up, smoothing down her skirt. I also want to make sure this particular affair ends cleanly, without any messy complications that might affect my children. What kind of complications? The kind where your wife decides to make trouble for my family, the kind where she shows up at my house or my children's school demanding to speak with Aiden, the kind where she tries to force a confrontation that could become public. I was beginning to understand Catherine Price's strategy. She wasn't a victim. She was a woman protecting her interests and her family's reputation. The anonymous text messages, the evidence she'd collected, even the vandalism of her husband's car, it was all designed to end the affair on her terms. Did you vandalize Aiden's car? I asked. She smiled again. I have no idea what you're talking about. After Catherine left, I spent the afternoon going through the evidence she'd provided. It was comprehensive and damning, not just proof of the affair, but documentation of a pattern of behavior that went back years. Aiden Price was a serial cheater who used the same techniques on every woman: expensive gifts, promises of a future together, and elaborate lies about his marriage. There were photos of him with at least 6 different women over the past 5 years, receipts for jewelry and hotel rooms, even copies of love letters he'd written that were virtually identical, except for the names. Vanessa wasn't special. She was just the latest in a long line of women who'd fallen for the same con. At 6 p.m., my phone rang, Vanessa's number. "Derek, we need to talk," she said without preamble. "Can you meet me at the lighthouse in an hour?" "Sure. And Derek, don't bring anyone else. This needs to be just between us." The lighthouse was crowded for a weeknight, filled with the usual mix of dock workers, office employees, and college students. Vanessa was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a glass of wine that looked like it wasn't her first. She'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged, and her eyes were red and swollen. For the first time since this whole thing started, she looked genuinely vulnerable. "I'm sorry," she said, as I sat down across from her. "I'm sorry for everything. The lying, the cheating, the way I've been treating you. You didn't deserve any of it." "What changed your mind?" "Aiden ended it, this morning. He said things were getting too complicated, that he needed to focus on his family. Just like that, after 4 months of telling me he loved me and wanted to be with me forever." I didn't tell her about Catherine Price's visit or the evidence of Aiden's other affairs. She looked broken enough already. "What do you want from me, Vanessa?" "I want to come home. I want to try to fix our marriage if you'll let me. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I still love you. I never stopped loving you." She reached across the table and took my hand, her fingers cold and trembling. "Please, Derek, give me another chance. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Looking at her, I felt a complicated mix of emotions: pity, anger, sadness, and something that might have been the ghost of the love I'd once felt for her. But I also felt something else: the knowledge that some things, once broken, can't be repaired. "Vanessa," I said gently, "it's too late." "What do you mean?" "I mean that even if I could forgive the affair, I can't forgive the person you became. The lying, the stealing from Lila, the way you talked about me to your friends like I was some kind of burden you were planning to discard. I never. You told Lila I was boring. You said I didn't appreciate you. You were planning to take half of everything I owned and start fresh with Aiden, weren't you? Vanessa's face crumpled. I was angry. I felt trapped and unappreciated, and Aiden made me feel special again, but I never would have actually gone through with it. Yes, you would have. If Aiden hadn't ended things, you'd be serving me with divorce papers right now. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of Catherine Price's photos. Aiden, with another woman, taken just 2 weeks ago while he was supposedly devoted to Vanessa. He was cheating on you while he was cheating on his wife, I said. You weren't special, Vanessa. You were just convenient. She stared at the photo, her face going through the same progression of emotions I'd experienced when I first learned about the affair. How long have you known about this? Does it matter? It matters to me. Long enough to realize that our marriage has been over for a while. We just haven't made it official yet. Vanessa finished her wine and signaled the bartender for another. So what happens now? Now we get divorced. Quietly, without drama, with a fair division of assets. You can keep the jewelry Aiden bought you, and I'll keep the house and my business. And if I don't agree to that? I pulled out Catherine Price's envelope and set it on the table between us. Then I release all of this to everyone we know. Your friends, your clients, your family. I'll make sure the whole city knows exactly what you did and who you did it with. Vanessa stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. You've changed, Derek. You used to be kind. I used to be naive. There's a difference. She opened the envelope and glanced at the contents, her face going pale. Where did you get all this? From someone who wanted to make sure you understood that actions have consequences. Vanessa closed the envelope and pushed it back across the table. Fine, you win. I'll agree to whatever divorce terms you want. This isn't about winning, Vanessa. This is about ending something that should have ended months ago. I stood up to leave, then turned back to her one last time. For what it's worth, I really am sorry it came to this. At one point, I thought we could have a good life together. So did I, she whispered. I left her sitting in the booth, staring into her wine glass like it might contain answers to questions she was afraid to ask. Outside, the evening air was cool and clean, carrying the salt smell of the harbor. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine Price. How did it go? I typed back. It's over. She'll agree to the divorce. Good. Aiden is flying to Boston tomorrow for a business trip. He won't be back for a week. That should give everyone time to adjust to the new reality. I walked home through the quiet streets, past the houses where other couples were probably having dinner, watching television, living the kind of normal married life I'd thought I had until recently. Tomorrow, I'd call a divorce attorney and start the process of legally ending my marriage. Tonight, I was just going to go home to my empty house and enjoy the peace. But as I turned onto my street, I saw that my house wasn't empty. There were lights on in the living room, and Vanessa's car was in the driveway. Apparently, our conversation wasn't over after all. I found Vanessa in my home office, sitting at my desk with my laptop open in front of her. She'd changed out of the dress she'd worn to the bar and into jeans and a sweater like she was planning to stay for a while. What are you doing? I asked. Trying to understand how long you've been planning this, she said without looking up from the screen. These bank records, the credit monitoring, the private investigator bills, you've been building a case against me for weeks. I've been protecting myself. By spying on me. By having me followed and photographed like I was some kind of criminal. Vanessa finally looked at me, and I saw that the vulnerable woman from the bar had been replaced by someone harder, angrier. Did you enjoy it, Derek? Watching me make a fool of myself while you collected evidence? I enjoyed finally knowing the truth. The truth. She laughed bitterly. You want the truth? Here's the truth. Our marriage was over long before I met Aiden. You just didn't notice because you were too busy with your computers and your startup to pay attention to your wife. So, this is my fault? This is both of our faults. I should have asked for a divorce instead of having an affair, and you should have fought for our marriage instead of just documenting its failure. She was right about that, at least partially. I had been distant, focused on work, taking our relationship for granted. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. None of that justifies the lying and cheating, I said. No, it doesn't. But it explains it. Vanessa closed the laptop and stood up. I came here tonight to pack the rest of my things. I'm moving back to Boston, staying with my sister until I can find my own place. What about your business with Lila? What business? She fired me this afternoon. Apparently, someone told her about the money I took from the company account. I hadn't told Lila about the theft, which meant someone else had. Probably Catherine Price, tying up loose ends. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. No, you're not. You're relieved. This way, you get everything you wanted, the house, the business, your reputation intact, and you get to be the victim. Vanessa walked past me toward the stairs, then stopped. You know what the really sad part is? I did love you, Derek. Even when I was with Aiden, even when I was planning to leave you, part of me still loved the man I married. Past tense? Past tense. Because the man I married would never have done what you did tonight. He would never have humiliated me in public, never have threatened to destroy my reputation, never have sat there watching me beg for forgiveness when he'd already decided to end our marriage. The man you married was a fool. Maybe. But at least he was kind. She went upstairs to pack, and I went to the kitchen to pour myself a drink. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Patterson's house next door, the lights warm and welcoming in her living room. She'd been married to the same man for 43 years. I'd asked her once what the secret was, and she'd said, "We decided early on that divorce wasn't an option, so we had to figure out how to make it work." Vanessa and I had never made that decision. We'd gotten married because it seemed like the next logical step, stayed married because it was easier than changing, and now we were getting divorced because we'd forgotten why we'd wanted to be together in the first place. An hour later, Vanessa came downstairs with 2 more suitcases and a box of personal items. She moved efficiently, like she'd been planning this for weeks. "I'll send you my new address once I'm settled," she said, "for the divorce papers." Vanessa, don't. Whatever you're going to say, just don't. We've hurt each other enough for one lifetime. She loaded her things into her car and came back for one last trip. At the front door, she turned to look at me. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Derek. I hope this all makes you happy." What do you think I was looking for? Control. The ability to be right. The satisfaction of winning. She wasn't entirely wrong. There had been satisfaction in exposing her lies, in turning the tables on someone who'd been manipulating me for months. But now, standing in the doorway of our empty house, I wasn't sure what I'd actually won. Goodbye, Derek. Goodbye, Vanessa. I watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing around the corner. Then I went back inside and called Miles. "It's over," I told him. "She's gone." "How do you feel?" "I'm not sure yet. Ask me in a few months." You did the right thing, Derek. She made her choices and you protected yourself. Don't second-guess it now. After Miles hung up, I walked through the house, taking inventory of what remained. Vanessa had taken her clothes, her jewelry, her books, and most of the decorative items that had made our house feel like a home. What was left felt more like a hotel room than a place where 2 people had lived together for 6 years. My phone buzzed with one last text from Catherine Price. "Aiden's flight leaves at 6 a.m. I thought you should know that he asked me to tell your wife he was sorry things ended badly. I told him to go to hell." I typed back, "Thank you for everything. I hope your family stays safe." "We will. And Derek, you're better off without her. Trust me on that." I deleted the text conversation and blocked the number. Whatever alliance Catherine Price and I had formed was over now, our mutual goals achieved. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney and started the legal process of ending my marriage. The paperwork was surprisingly straightforward. No children, no major disputes over assets, just two people who'd decided they couldn't live together anymore. I also called my sister Rosa, who'd never liked Vanessa and had been predicting our divorce for years. "I'm sorry it didn't work out," she said, though she didn't sound particularly sorry. "But I'm not surprised. She always seemed like she was looking for something better to come along." Maybe she was. "Derek, listen to me. You're a good man, and you deserve to be with someone who appreciates that. Don't let this experience make you cynical about love." "I'm not cynical about love. I'm just more realistic about people." 2 weeks later, I got a call from Lila Morrison. Vanessa's former business partner sounded nervous and apologetic. "Derek, I wanted to apologize for not telling you about Vanessa sooner. I knew what she was doing was wrong, but I didn't know how to handle it. It's not your responsibility to police other people's marriages, Lila. Maybe not, but I should have been a better friend to both of you. What's going to happen with your business? I'm starting over. New name, new clients, new everything. Vanessa's reputation has pretty much destroyed any credibility I had in the event planning business." "I'm sorry about that." "Don't be. I'm actually relieved. Working with her had become impossible anyway. She was so focused on her personal drama that she wasn't paying attention to our clients." After Lila hung up, I realized that Vanessa's affair hadn't just destroyed our marriage. It had created a ripple effect that damaged everyone around her. Lila's business, Aiden's relationship with his wife, even my own reputation in our social circle. But as the weeks passed and the initial shock wore off, I started to feel something I hadn't expected. Gratitude. Not for the pain or the betrayal, but for the clarity. For the first time in years, I knew exactly where I stood and what I wanted. I threw myself into my work, expanding my startup and taking on new challenges. I started exercising regularly, something I'd neglected during the final months of my marriage. I even began dating again, though nothing serious. Just dinner with interesting women who made me remember what it felt like to have conversations that weren't loaded with hidden meanings and unspoken resentments. 6 months after Vanessa left, the divorce was finalized. She'd moved to Boston and found a job with a marketing firm, apparently rebuilding her life with the same efficiency she'd once brought to planning events. We'd exchanged a few emails about the legal paperwork, but otherwise had no contact. I was in my office late one evening when Miles called with an update I hadn't asked for. "Thought you might want to know. Aiden Price's wife filed for divorce last week." "Really? I thought she was planning to stay married." "Apparently, he had another affair. This time with someone who wasn't as discreet as your ex-wife. Photos ended up on social media, and Catherine decided she'd had enough." "What about their kids?" "Joint custody, substantial alimony, and a very expensive lesson about the consequences of serial infidelity." I felt a pang of sympathy for Catherine Price. She'd tried to manage an impossible situation, and it had blown up anyway. "Any word on what happened to the other woman?" I asked. "Fired from her job, dumped by Price, and apparently blacklisted from most of the social circles she'd been trying to break into. Sound familiar?" It did sound familiar. Aiden Price left a trail of damaged lives behind him, and Vanessa had just been one more casualty. That night, I sat on my back porch with a beer, looking out at the harbor lights and thinking about the strange turns life takes. A year ago, I'd been married to a woman I thought I knew, living what I thought was a stable, if unremarkable life. Now I was divorced, alone, and somehow happier than I'd been in years. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Derek, this is Vanessa. I know we agreed not to contact each other, but I wanted you to know that I heard about Catherine Price's divorce. I'm sorry for the role I played in destroying their family. I'm sorry for a lot of things. I hope you're doing well." I stared at the message for a long time, trying to decide how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to maintain the clean break we'd established. But another part of me recognized the courage it had taken for her to reach out. I typed back, "Thank you for saying that. I hope you're doing well, too." A few minutes later, another message. "I am. I'm seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I made the choices I did. I think I was afraid of getting older, afraid of being ordinary. Aiden made me feel special, but I realize now that I was just another conquest. We all make mistakes, Vanessa. The important thing is learning from them. I've learned that the grass isn't always greener. I've learned that good men are rare, and I was stupid to throw away what we had. But mostly, I've learned that I need to figure out who I am before I can be in a relationship with anyone." That sounds like wisdom. "It sounds like something my therapist would say," she replied, and I could almost hear her laughing. "Derek, I know it's too late for us, but I want you to know that you deserved better. You deserved honesty and loyalty, and I'm sorry I couldn't give you that." "I forgive you," I typed, and realized I meant it. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The conversation ended there, and I never heard from Vanessa again. But that brief exchange gave me something I hadn't realized I needed: closure, and the knowledge that she understood the magnitude of what she'd lost. A year later, I met Sarah at a coffee shop downtown. She was a teacher, recently divorced herself, with a dry sense of humor and a refreshing directness that reminded me of what authentic communication felt like. We started as friends, bonding over our shared experience of failed marriages, and gradually became something more. "Do you ever regret how things ended with Vanessa?" Sarah asked me one evening as we walked along the harbor. "I regret that it had to end at all," I said. "But I don't regret standing up for myself. I spent too many years accepting behavior that was unacceptable." "What would you have done differently?" "I would have paid attention sooner. I would have insisted on honesty instead of just hoping things would get better on their own." Sarah squeezed my hand. "We all learn at our own pace." She was right about that. Some lessons can only be learned through experience, and some experiences, no matter how painful, are necessary for growth. 2 years after my divorce, I sold my startup to a larger tech company for enough money to retire early if I wanted to. Instead, I started a consulting business, helping other entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes I'd made in both business and life. I never saw Vanessa again, though I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd remarried, a fellow marketing executive in Boston who, by all accounts, was a good match for her. I hoped she'd found the happiness that had eluded her in our marriage. As for Aiden Price, he'd moved to Florida after his divorce, apparently starting over in a place where his reputation hadn't preceded him. I wondered how long it would take him to fall back into his old patterns. Some people change, and some people just change locations. Standing in my kitchen on a quiet Sunday morning, making coffee in the house that was now truly mine, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. The 3 a.m. phone call that had started everything seemed like a lifetime ago, though it had only been 3 years. I'd learned that marriage, like any partnership, requires constant attention and honest communication. I'd learned that financial infidelity is often a precursor to other kinds of betrayal. Most importantly, I'd learned that self-respect isn't negotiable. No relationship is worth sacrificing your integrity. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Sarah's number. "Good morning," I answered. "Good morning yourself. Want to grab brunch? I'm thinking about that place by the water. I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. As I got dressed, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. I looked older than I had 3 years ago, but also somehow younger. The stress lines around my eyes had faded, replaced by something that looked like contentment. I thought about the anonymous text I'd received all those years ago. "Well played, but this is just the beginning." The sender had been right. The end of my marriage had been just the beginning, of self-discovery, of learning to value myself, of building a life based on honesty rather than convenience. I grabbed my keys and headed out to pick up Sarah, looking forward to a day that held no secrets, no hidden agendas, no unpleasant surprises waiting to be discovered. Just the simple pleasure of spending time with someone who chose to be with me and whom I chose in return every single day.